Do not be afraid.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Mask of the Slasher. On this week's episode, we are going to be covering the movie The Heretic.
Yes.
This movie came out last year. We didn't get to go see it in the theater. There it is. But thankfully, it happened to be on Hulu?
Max, I think.
Or Max. Oh yeah, okay, so it was on Max. There you go, so if you guys need to go watch it, it's on Max. I will warn you that we will be giving spoilers for this, because there's no other way to talk about it otherwise.
Yeah, it'd be pretty hard.
It'd be a pretty boring episode. We'd just be like, yep, that stuff happened.
Yep, some things, some stuff.
Yeah, stuff and things.
Crazy stuff.
Another warning for folks is that this movie it is based around the LDS Church or Church of Latter-day Saints, Mormons, whatever you'd like to call it. We will be talking about religious stuff. As Josh and I have mentioned before, we are not religious people. Even though we both grew up in some form of Christianity. Mm-hmm. Josh going to Catholic school, I went to Christian school briefly, yada, yada, yada. So if you're going to be offended by what we talk about, I apologize, and we'll see you on the next episode, or go watch the other 70-something episodes we have. We've got plenty for you to watch. So, but this one I didn't see where we could really avoid the subject matter.
No, I don't think so.
That's what the movie is about. Yeah. So if we were to just not put spoilers or anything about religion in this, we wouldn't be making this episode.
Nope.
So, and it's something that we really do think about when we're going to pick a movie. We knew what it was going to entail.
Yeah.
So it is. Sorry.
That's right. You can pick a movie and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose.
There you go, folks. Words of wisdom from Josh Hahn.
That's right.
I hope that helps you out. Please don't pick your friend's nose.
That's right.
Please. You've got your own boogers to pick.
You do.
As I said, this movie came out in 2024, which was last year. We're in 2025 now, in case everybody was wondering where we are.
For better or worse.
Yes. It's starting out worse.
Yep.
Anyway, this was directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods. These two directors, they actually directed together The Boogeyman and A Quiet Place. They both knew each other since they were 11 years old. They grew up in Iowa. They both liked to use their action figures to do stop action movies, that kind of thing, and they've just been hanging out since. When they were getting older and they started doing short movies and that kind of thing, they met some missionaries, Mormon missionaries, and they became friends with them, and they have stated that they're still friends with them, despite them not being part of the church.
Maybe not after this movie.
Yeah, probably not after this movie. But, you know, so they trying to be as respectful to this and get all the facts straight.
Yeah.
Yeah. The two main actresses in this that play the missionaries, Sister Paxton is played by Chloe East, and Sister Barnes is played by Sophie Thatcher. Chloe East I don't know as well, but Sophie Thatcher, she has been in a lot of stuff, but most recently The Yellow Jackets, the TV show. If you haven't watched that, give it a shot. It's pretty good. It's kind of bananas.
She was in Boogeyman as well, right?
Yes, I was getting to that.
Sorry. I was trying to chime in there, that's all.
Okay.
Sorry.
Why don't you just do it
Nope,
then?
that's all you.
All right.
Go right ahead.
Sophie Thatcher was also in the movie The Boogeyman, which obviously makes sense with the directors already knowing her. We both enjoyed The Boogeyman as well. Mm-hmm. If you haven't seen that, that's a great movie to go check out.
Yeah.
It's very different from most horror movies that are out there. So, of course, we all know the main dude in this, Mr. Reed. He is played by none other than Hugh Grant.
Yeah, of Dungeons and Dragons fame.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking.
It's a good movie.
Okay. But also, I know him from, usually it's like rom-coms, like 2 Weeks Notice, or Bridget Jones's, I can't even ever say it. Bridget Jones's, I can't say that. Bridget Jones's Diary. So we start off the movie in kind of a weird place. The two missionaries, the girls, they're sitting on a park bench that has an advertisement on it that we don't see until a little bit later on. But they're discussing the trickery behind advertising, and specifically the ads for Magnum condoms. Mm-hmm. And one of them says, oh, well, I heard, they're not any bigger than the regular ones. They are. Just going to let you know. Anyway, and missionaries, their job is to go around and share the gospel and blah, 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 whatever, and to get people to, come on over. Get the church some money.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what happens in churches, unfortunately.
Right.
And the Mormon church specifically asks for at least 11% tithing.
Whew.
That's a lot.
Steep.
Yeah, especially for a church that encourages a lot of childbearing.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the Catholic amount was supposed to be.
It was probably like a fifth of whiskey. Yeah.
A carton of cigarettes.
Yeah. Something along those lines. It's got to be money towards attorneys. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so they're going around town. All they have is bicycles. This is not always the case, by the way. The missionaries sometimes do have vehicles.
Mopeds.
No, they don't have mopeds. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to disappoint you.
Yeah.
No Vespas, no mopeds. Not even a Hot Wheels thing.
Shoot.
I know. Sorry. Instead, ours have a RAV4.
Yeah.
So, which I was surprised at. That's a halfway decent vehicle for them. Usually they get really shitty cars. But anyway, so, they're just going around meeting people, trying to get people to join their church. And it's not easy. If you've ever had a missionary come to your door, you're usually pretty irritated by it.
Yeah.
So they get a lot of doors slamming,
Yeah.
a lot of people ignoring them. But you see that these two girls, they're really trying hardest that they can. Sister Paxton is more of a prude. She was born into the church, and Sister Barnes was a convert. As they're out walking around doing their thing, they come to a four-way stop. They're getting ready to cross the street, and across the way they see these girls that are about their age doing stupid TikTok videos in the middle of an intersection.
Yeah.
Stop doing that. It's stupid. It's annoying. Anyway. But they're jealous, of course, because they can't just be young girls and do young things. This is what the church wants them to do, and it's frowned upon if you don't do it.
Yeah.
They see these girls, and they're kind of envious of it, and the girls come over, and they're like, oh, can we take a picture with you? Automatically, I was like, this is going to be a dick move.
Yeah.
Because they're not clowns. They're human beings. They're young girls putting their lives out there, really, for their church.
Right.
And unfortunately... Sister Paxton gets, pantsed, but really she gets skirted.
Yeah.
They pull down her skirt and they mention something about their magic underwear.
Right.
If you don't know, now you're going to know, that Mormons eventually, they have to get accepted into the church on a different level to be able to enter their temples. General public is not allowed to go into the temples in any way. It's top secret. I don't know, there's a lot of white rooms.
Yeah.
There's some baptisms of the dead going on there. Kind of weird stuff. And once you go into the temple, that's when you start to wear what they actually call as garments or magic underwear, as I refer to them as well.
Yeah.
If you want to learn more about garments, you go right ahead. I'm not going to go into it. It is not my place to talk about all of that. Anyway, very embarrassing for this poor girl, especially growing up in the church, when Sister Barnes doesn't, of course she understands why she's upset, but it's not as big of a deal to her.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they have a list of places to go, and their big stop that they're really hoping to convert is Mr. Reed, who they met in Costco.
Yeah.
Yep, and I'm pretty sure Costco wouldn't allow this
Just
normally.
a couple Mormons tooling around Costco,
Yeah. They go to his house. It's up in the hills, which I feel bad for them, on bicycles and skirts in the hills. That sucks. And it's cold, it's wet, and it's freaking Colorado. But they get there. It's a very storybook-looking house. Looks very sweet and innocent, Englishy. And, of course, he's English, so it kind of works out for him, You expect him to read some children's storybook rhymes or something out of this house. But anyway, so he opens the door. It takes him a while to get to that door, though. And you hear a lot of clinking and clunking, and you're like, what the hell is he doing back there?
Indeed.
But he opens the door, and the girls start telling him about, their church and blah, blah, blah. And he invites them in because it is pouring rain on them. And they said, we can't come in unless there's a woman present. He was like, yeah, she's here. My wife's here. She's in the kitchen making a pie, and great, come on in. And they're reluctant, but they go in. I would have been like, nah, son.
Yeah.
Rules are rules, man. But they still, probably because it's cold and it's wet and they're miserable and they're desperate to get somebody for today, to meet their Mormon quota or whatever. But they go inside, and it's a very awkward conversation even inside. They don't sit down for a while.
Yeah.
So while they're standing there waiting for Mr. Reed, he's like, I'm going to go get my wife. I'll be back. check on this pie situation. And they're just kind of looking around at the place, and it looks like a typical old English cottagey type home. But there's a couple weird things about it. There's no real pictures on the wall, just very generic stuff laying around. And they see a butterfly. And I have to say that this is probably the first nod that I see to Silence of the Lambs in this movie.
Yeah.
If you remember, when they go to Buffalo Bill's house, there is moths flying around, and it's a dead giveaway that something is awry in the basement. So these girls, if they had ever watched Silence of the Lambs, had been like, nope.
Get out.
Yeah, no, he's making a skin suit down there. I know it. And these girls are skinny. There's not a lot for them to work with on them.
No.
So, but anyway, he comes back out, and they go and sit down on the couch, but he brings out 2 Cokes. Like I said, Mormons cannot drink caffeine, or they're not supposed to, because it's considered a drug. So it was kind of weird of him to do that. It was like the first challenge.
Yeah.
And he also brings out his Book of Mormon that he has. Up to this point, he's kind of played off that he doesn't know much about the church. Then he busts out a big, thick Book of Mormon, all tabbed up, marked up, and they're like, oh, shit, you know more than us. And that's the second big red flag right there, you know. It's like, that's kind of weird. Why would you lie about that?
Yeah.
And he starts just they're having like small talk conversation about the church, whatever. But he starts bringing in some pretty uncomfortable conversations. A big one is polygamy.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, obviously associate polygamy and Mormons in the same thing. But in the regular Mormon church, they don't do polygamy stuff anymore.
Yeah.
It's in another sector.
Like the Renegades.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you want to go watch the show Big Love,
There you go.
there's some polygamy for you. But I've never met anybody who was a polygamist.
Yeah.
So, sorry. But anyway, so it's making them uncomfortable because it's like, what does this have to do with anything that we're talking about?
Yeah.
And, you know, the girls they're so young that, you know, despite growing up in the church or even being a convert in the church, they're only going to have so much knowledge and so much rebuttal to these kinds of questions.
Sure.
And so it's weird. It's
Yeah.
a little weird,
Yeah.
and it's actually pretty rude. If I was to say something like that to a missionary, that would be incredibly rude of me to do that.
He kind of prefaces it, though, as saying I'm going to ask an uncomfortable question, or can I ask it? Something along those lines. I don't remember the exact words.
But it was a very lengthy preface, too.
Yeah,
It was like, okay, just get to it, dude.
Yeah,
Just cut to
exactly.
the chase. The girls keep asking to see his wife, and he keeps putting it off and putting it off. And, well, he steps away to go and supposedly do this again. He had brought out a candle earlier, and Sophie Thatcher's character, Sister Barnes, she looks at this candle and she turns around the label and sees that it says blueberry pie on it.
Yep.
And you see this in the ad. No big surprises. But that's what's happening, is that he lied, obviously. And so now they're getting really scared. And they start talking to each other about getting out of there. They do have a cell phone that was provided by the church that is, it's almost like a cricket, you know, like the bare minimum of phones to have, you know, just so they could keep appointments and keep in contact with the church. And they try to use it, but there's no signal in that house. Red flag.
Yep.
So, because it's either that or he lives in an Amazon warehouse.
Yeah.
You know, what is causing the signal to be blocked from up there, you know? But anyway, so they're like, well, shit, what do we do? They try using the front door. Of course it's locked. Of course they can't open it. And so they kind of go into the next room where he says, oh, my wife's ready to meet you, whatever.
Yeah.
We're going to sit down. And
They sort of luring him deeper and deeper into the house.
yes. And they end up it's basically a study, a library. And he mentions, you know, in there that he's a theologist. He doesn't really say why he's a theologist, if he's a professor or anything like that. We don't have a lot of background on him, really, throughout the entire movie, unfortunately. But they're standing there, and there's 2 doors in this room, and they said, well, we need to leave. We just received a phone call, and, you know, we need to get out of here, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, you can't go through the front door.
Yeah.
It's locked until the morning. What?
It's on timers.
Yeah. Like, who has doors on timers?
Yeah.
But anyway, Amazon buildings.
Yeah, there you go.
That's who has doors on timers. But anyway, so he said, oh, you could go through the back door of my house. But like I said, there's 2 doors. So this is where he starts to challenge their religion and their beliefs in the religion. He has an interesting analogy that he starts to use, and I'm going to let you explain that.
So he starts talking about iterations and brings out a cloth that shows the symbols of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And he compares them essentially to board games. First, he brings out a game called Landlord's Game. Then he brings out Monopoly and explains that, Landlord's Game was invented by a woman in whatever year. However, a man took the concept, claimed it as his own, created Monopoly, and that's the one that became popular. Kind of trying to say that even though Judaism is the OG,
Yeah.
Christianity came along as basically an iteration of the same thing, but it's the one that became popular. Then he talks about Islam and brings out a newfangled Monopoly game and says, this is the most recent iteration of the same thing, basically. Yeah. He goes on to talk about music and the song The Air That I Breathe, who I can't remember who the artist is for that song, but regardless, Radiohead's Creep, that artist sued Radiohead because they claimed that the melody and beat were the same. It goes on to say that Lana Del Rey had a song for which Radiohead sued them because it was similar to Creep. So basically he's just trying to say that, all these religions are basically regurgitations of the same thing.
Yes.
He goes on to compare it to ancient Egyptian mythology and things of that nature and saying, hey, these things have similarities as well. So, basically saying that all of it's the same and all of it's false.
Yes.
Essentially.
And the last comparison he busts out, he brings out the Book of Mormon and he puts it on top of the Holy Bible. And then he brings out the Monopoly game that has Bob Ross, the painter, on it, saying that this is the newest version of Christianity, or one of the newer versions.
Yep.
And it's a whole nother thing on top of it because Joseph Smith saw a vision. I think he was on peyote or something. And, he decided to make up his own religion.
Yeah.
And so the comparison with that and the Bob Ross Monopoly was basically saying this is the entertaining version of it, and kind of making fun of him in a way. I think if there was a version with a clown on it, he probably would have used that, but Bob Ross is pretty close. The girls are like, it's great, we want to leave still.
Yeah.
How do we get out of here? And so he starts to challenge them more. And on one door he writes belief, and on the other door he writes disbelief. And they have to choose between which door they think, but you can't really tell where these doors are going. You don't know anything, Sister Barnes opens up one of the doors and it just looks like nothing. What are you supposed to do? Sister Paxton chooses the disbelief door, thinking that is what Mr. Reed wants, that he's trying to say that religion is stupid. And ultimately he's not saying that at all, but she's so flustered with what's happening that she's just, hasty to go, okay, let's go to the disbelief door. And Sister Barnes is like, nah, let's go to the belief one because we're standing our ground. We're going to, this is what we wanted, and we're going to continue with this. Ultimately, the girls decide to go down the belief rabbit hole, essentially. And they get down to like a basement that's really gross. And they see that actually both doors led to the same place. It was a trap.
Yep.
And it was just to challenge their beliefs. And down there is just, it's damp and gross, and all there is like a card table and a folding chair.
Yeah.
And the girls are like, well, shit, there's no place to go. They couldn't get out anywhere. And Mr. Reed starts talking to them through this tube that went down there and just presenting more challenging questions. I don't want to go through the entire script because Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But,
plus, since it just came to streaming, you don't want to give too much away if you're deciding to watch this before you watch the movie.
Exactly. But he wants them to see what the one true religion is. That's what his whole point is. It's not, oh, your religion's stupid, blah, blah, blah. He wants to make this point. They go through some challenges for the remaining of the movie to get to that. So he can prove his point in some way or another. Like I said, I don't want to ruin everything.
Right.
That's about the amount of spoilers that we want to give.
Yeah.
Because what we've told you is really not that surprising.
Yeah, nothing too much more than what's shown in the trailer, and that kind of disappointed me, honestly, that the trailer gave so much away.
Which is a problem these days.
Yeah, a lot of trailers. There's a trailer should be like 1 minute maybe at the most, but now you've got these like 2 minute 30-second trailers that show all the main points of the movie, and it's like, why? No, just give me a little tease, give me a little taste to kind of tickle my undercarriage. Give me a little thrill, so I want to go see the movie.
I live with this. I live with tickle my undercarriage. All right, it's a problem. Anyway, so I will say, I mean, this movie obviously is suspenseful. That's the whole point of it. There's a little bit of gore in there at some point.
Yeah.
But it's funny, in my opinion. I mean, we were both cringing pretty hard.
Yeah,
But it was also hilarious,
Yeah.
too. You get to see another side of Hugh Grant's acting, which you rarely see. The only other time I saw him in a very serious role was a show called The Undoing. It was a short, quick series thing, and it was very dramatic and very dark, and it's also a good show, but it's not horror or anything, so be prepared for that. But I appreciated his acting for this. Both the girls that play the missionaries, like I said, they grew up in the church, and when they were presented with these scripts, they were both challenged as to whether or not they should do it. They wanted to make sure that it was being respectful to the church. They still have friends and family that are in the church. Why would you want to burn your bridges with everybody for a movie?
Right.
Sophie Thatcher definitely has no shortage of movies to do. So, Chloe East, but so they all did a really good job of pulling this through and getting the point across. The movie it's really meant to just challenge your brain as to what you think about religion and the reiterations of the Bible. And this is where my little crossroads was in life was, I learned about these other religions, and I started to go, there's no clear way of saying that this is the one true religion. And between that and some other personal stuff in my life, I was like, you know what? I don't want this anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you start to see all these different religions, they're just a variation of one. You start to go, is this, it's like Santa Claus. Or the, Wizard of Oz, where you've pulled back the curtain and now you see all the ugly sides of it.
Right.
War and that kind of thing that go on just because of religion.
Yeah.
And you just don't want to be a part of it.
Right.
That's what I've come to. I would imagine you're kind of in the same boat where it was like, what's the point of all this?
I never really, even when I was a kid, I never really bought into any of it. And I kept it to myself and wondered if something was wrong with me, you know? And then when I got older, I was like, okay, there are other people
that question it.
like this as well,
Yeah, yeah. And, I was never scared of the stuff that they said in school. I was like, it just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just seemed iffy to me. But anyway, I think that the point that Mr. Reed is trying to make was exactly in line with what I was thinking back when I was younger, of trying to figure it out too.
Yeah, I wanted to like this movie. I really did. Ultimately, I did not like it very much. I just felt that some of the writing was lacking and that it was convoluted in places that it didn't need to be and didn't explain things where I felt explanation was needed. Mr. Reed, the character, I think there's a good character there, but we never really understand why he is the way he is. If you're going to go that, I often say that not everything needs to be explained, but at the same time, if we're going to go balls to the wall this deep into something, we kind of need to know why. An interest in something doesn't just turn into madness without something happening. You know what I mean? And it'd be interesting to know what actually happened to him that caused that mania. You know what I mean? I thought the performances across the board were excellent. As you said, we see another side of Hugh Grant, which is cool because I always thought he was a good actor. He's not in many things that I care to watch. He's not in many things that I care to watch, but we saw a different side of him in this, and he does an excellent job with it. Both the ladies that play the missionaries are excellent as well. So definitely not a fault in the performances, and I think the directing is good. And we know that these two directors are capable of making a good movie because I thought Boogeyman was a very good movie that didn't really seem to get a lot of attention. But I think the flaws here are in the writing and then maybe also the editing because maybe, I know this is just speculation on my part, but maybe there were things that explained a little more that got left on the cutting room floor, as they say. Well, who knows? We may never know unless they do a bunch of crazy special features.
Yeah,
exactly.
To
find out more. But yeah, I thought the potential for a good movie was there. But for me, it was just a little bit of a misfire in some pretty key areas. But that's, like I said, I don't think it's the fault of the directors, definitely not the fault of the actors. And I'd love to see more from everybody that was involved. I just think there was some flaws in the writing and possibly some flaws in the editing here.
Yeah, I agree. So with that, go watch it on Max. Let us know what you think. We left out a lot of stuff. So despite us saying spoilers, we only gave you a little morsel of it. And there's so much more to the story.
Absolutely.
But we want to know is the script lacking like we think it is? Was there... I do think Mr. Reed's story needed to be explained, and it probably would have intrigued his character. It would have been more intriguing to watch. because it was like, okay, well, he was very articulate and very intelligent sounding, blah, 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 which you're always hoping for in these types of cynical, crazy characters.
Yeah.
But why?
Yeah.
Why,
Exactly.
why? Yeah, we just want to know what you think.
Yes.
I know that a lot of other people didn't really care for it. I tried not to read reviews because I really feel like sometimes people just write nasty shit on, social media just for the sake of it.
Oh yeah, or if it's on a website or something to get clicks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just that clickbait.
Yeah, and then just trolling.
Yeah.
Just trolling. And so don't always listen to what people write on social media.
Yeah.
Watching our videos, at least you can hear us explain why.
Yeah, it's by no means a terrible movie. It's just I find it to be an interesting yet flawed movie. Put it that way.
If you missed our announcement from before, our channel is only going to be putting out 2 videos a month. I have decided that we will put them out on Thursdays. This gives me the most amount of time to edit things. If I can put out more videos, we will.
Right.
But I don't want to promise that. I want to just say 2 a month, and that will be that.
Yeah.
If you want to know the backstory to that, you can go look at my post on Facebook. I put it on YouTube. I put it everywhere. You can read about it. But if you have questions you want to ask me, please feel free to private message me, and I will explain it to you. But otherwise, that's what we're at right now.
Yeah.
And we request that you like and subscribe. We request that you share our videos, because without views, we don't know if we're doing anything right or wrong.
Exactly.
Sometimes we don't understand why one video has almost 1,000 views, and the other one has 6.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, how many people hate The Lost Boys?
Yeah, I think it's just the algorithm bullshit.
It is. We're definitely slaves to the algorithm. That's for sure. Everybody is. It's on YouTube, even the big names.
Yep.
So, but yeah, and if there is a movie that you want us to cover, please.
Oh yeah,
please,
drop
please,
us a
please.
comment.
Yeah.
Because we'll watch pretty much anything. We'll give anything a chance at least.
Yeah. Not somebody's personal thing that they have made. We're not going to review.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that.
No, we're going to review things that anybody can watch.
Yeah.
Because it just makes it more fair. But anyway, so yeah, let us know what you think, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.